Hello, friends.
All right, so this video is going to pick up where the last one ended, and I am going through career changes. I ended up having a lot of positive, but also what they call positive stress. I was learning the new career. I became a certified dog trainer. I went through the animal behavior college. So these are all like good stresses, right? Because there is a good stress, and then there's, you know, the horrible negative stresses that life does to us. So I've got that going on, but I also wanted you to realize that my ex-husband was very big in my world, and he stayed in my life even though we end up finalizing our separation and divorce in 2002. But I go through a lot of changes, and my mother passes away in 2003, my dad in 2005. We always stayed in touch, me and my ex-husband. He took me out for lunch and dinner and all kinds of stuff. He was just really big in my world and in my life. He came and stayed at my house when my dad passed away to take care of my dogs for me. Yeah, so huge, you know. But also there was a hard period with the separation and divorce, because I really didn't date for 10 years because I really thought no one is going to accept me with what I'm battling, because I didn't even have a name for it, you know. Even my ex, right when we ended, he treated me like, well, maybe you are a hypochondriac, because I couldn't get a name, because I had no symptoms. There was just nothing ached in my back, nothing ached anywhere, just this leg weakness. I got the diabetes under control. Doctors were still thinking, well, maybe it is the diabetes and these swings that I used to have from the sugars. Yeah, like low blood sugars, maybe they were thinking, but that's all they could go off of. And no, they had absolutely no other direction to go to, because I had no symptoms, not even a backache, okay? So it made it, I can understand why it made it difficult. But anyway, so my ex-husband goes back to California in 2006 after I lose my dad, because he wanted to be back with his parents before they passed away, which I'm glad, because 2 months later he loses his dad after he went back to California. But the one thing was just his leaving was really hard for me too. And then 2 years later, I lose my German Shepherds and my little Brussels Griffon that I had at that time. So life kept punching and punching and punching, and I get this adrenal fatigue that I find out because I was hit pretty hard with medical issues too with all my dogs. You know, it's like what do I have, a target, you know, on my life? And so I get through all that, the just taking care of 3 senior dogs with horrible issues, and I have other videos talking about that, so I won't get into that in detail. But I find out I get adrenal fatigue. So, and again, research it, check it out, but basically it's where your sympathetic nervous system, and then you've got your parasympathetic nervous system, but your sympathetic nervous system stays in overdrive. That's your flight and fight instincts that your bodies have when you are in stressors in your life. In a stressful situation, it reacts. Your adrenals release chemicals in your body to protect you during those type of things, but it's designed for short periods. But it's kind of like it's like your accelerator stays in full blown, you know, like 100 miles per hour, and doesn't back off and allow the parasympathetic nervous system which is your calming part, to take over and relax your body back to a normal calm state. So you stay in overdrive, and it just puts havoc, these, you know, adrenals that just are just flooding your body and not going back to a parasympathetic nervous system state. So I get very sick from that. It actually mine was so severe and bad. It took 3 years working with a specialist to get through that process. Okay, and but I just want to pick up now where this video is going on, because before my German Shepherds and all the senior dogs pass away, that was in 2008. Well, in 2007 is when the cervical spine, I start to get now spinal issues that start to rise. And yeah, so my world really starts to change. And the closer I'm getting to becoming before 50 years old, but not quite there yet, my world changes. So this is where this picks up. But I just also wanted you to see the setting of also what's happening before this point, okay? So let's go back over to that part where I'm talking about the next part of this journey. When I was over by the lake telling my story. All right, so here we go. It's crazy. What a wild ride my life has been. But you know what? We can't give up, right? Okay, so here we go. So when I was about 47, my cervical spine ended up herniating, and it was crazy. But at that time, they didn't diagnose it was from my disc, okay? They thought maybe I had rotator cuff, they thought maybe I had bursitis. So I see the doctor without even putting me through tests. They just send me to PT, physical therapy. And I'm doing these physical therapy exercises, and even she was saying, wait a minute, I think something's going on with your neck, because she touched me on a part of my neck, because they kind of do a massage thing before you do your exercises, and she touched me on a part of my neck, and I thought, ah, and I screamed, and I almost jumped off the table. She says, I think you've got some spinal stuff going on. And she said many people get misdiagnosed for carpal tunnel when really it's in the spine, and they do even surgeries when it's spinal, okay? So anyway, so I get through all that and go through the physical therapy and many months, and then about 8 months later, my cervical spine went again, but in a different area, so the next area below. So now the whole arm is numb, and I lost feeling in my fingers, and all kinds of stuff was going on, and so finally I go back to the doctor, and he, you know, this was a good doctor, and he looks at my past chart, and then my past incident, and then this one, and he says, well, I see you haven't had any x-rays, so we need to get in there and do some x-rays. And I said, okay. So he does, and he sees that, you know, I have all these collapsed discs in my lower cervical spine area. So he says, we need to get you in and have an MRI done. So I get the MRI done, and sure enough, confirms everything, and the bulging disc and everything going on. And so now we finally can get me into the PT again, but this time doing the right exercises that have to do with my situation, right? So I get through all that, and so then about I'll just not give a year, rather not. So when I was about 50, let's just put it that way. So I was 50 years old, and all of a sudden, I started to have these, you know, tingling in my legs at times. And I was hiking with a friend. I met a friend, enjoying life, getting out, hiking. But now when we're coming out of a hike, I mean, I could walk out into the hike normal, but I was coming out walking like I was a 70, 80-year-old person. You know, I had this smaller stride, my feet were hurting, my shoes were hurting, my feet and my shoes. And she's like, you know, hurry up, come on, because we're losing daylight. And I'm going, I'm trying, you know, like, you know, waddling, you know, I'm trying, you know. And it was just an incredible amount of pain, and then pain down into, from my left side, and also into my hamstring muscles and stuff like that, or quadriceps, that's the front one. So all in that area, from the front, you know, all the way down from the hip down into the front of my leg. And so I had that going on. So finally I run back to the doctor and say, okay, I am not feeling good. We need to figure out what's going on. So so they send me through all kinds of tests. I mean, tests and tests and tests. They're looking for all kinds of things, and they're looking female area. They're looking all kinds of stuff. Everything's negative. And so then that was that one issue. And finally, I really say it came from God, but all of a sudden I just go, well, can we x-ray my hips? You know, because everything was a dead end. She says, well, better yet, let's do a body scan. So she sends me to have a body scan, and they find out that I had severe arthritis in my hips. And I'm like, what? I'm too young for this. I'm, you know, I'm 50 years old at this time. How could this be? So so the left side's worse than the right side, but both have severe. And but then I still have this tingling and all this other stuff going on. So no answer still for that, and the leg weakness, but she sends me to have my circulation checked out. And it turns out, she said, well, you've got the circulation of a teenager, so that looked good. And then the other one is the bone density. So I had the perfect bone density, so that was good news. But still, once again, no answers. We didn't know what was going on, okay? But I still kept battling with all this leg weakness and everything else. But they did find the, you know, arthritis in the hips, as I said. So she put me on meloxicam, and that just changed my world. It's anti-inflammatory, gave me back part of my life. And then she starts to send me to a neurologist at this time. So now I have to see a neurologist. The first one was a joke. Oh my gosh, he's checking my feet from the outside of my shoes, and can you feel this, can you feel that? And I knew enough to know, like, wait a minute here, you do not check people this way. I know enough to know that that's not right. You got instruments and things like that they're supposed to use when they check for your feeling and you know, how much you can feel and stuff like that. So I run back to her and said, this isn't going to work. We got to find me another, you know, doctor. But I actually found my own neurologist, and then went to her and said, this is the guy I want to see. He had incredible credentials. He'd written a lot of reports and you know, things like that. He worked with a lot of MS patients. So he's just an amazing, amazing doctor. So I go and see this guy, and he puts me through all the right tests, all the instruments. He puts me through a nerve conductive test. And then he finds out, well, guess what? You have neuropathy. And I'm going, neuropathy? Oh my gosh. At that time, he's looking at my MRI thinking, well, but your spine is bad. But he didn't feel that it would have caused any problems with causing the neuropathy at that point. Because I think by that time I already had, I had a lower spine MRI, actually, and a head one. You know, that's right, I forgot the other doctor before that one, neurologist, put me through those two MRIs. And so they were looking for MS at that time, and everything that came all back negative, other than they did see all the stenosis and the stuff going on in the spine, the collapsed disc in the lower spine, and all kinds of issues there. And yeah, so and in fact, that head MRI, oh my gosh, is that nuts, because you have to put your head inside a cage, and you can't move. It was just terrible. But good thing I wasn't claustrophobic. But you do have a little buzzer, so if at any moment in time you feel like a panic attack, like get me out of this thing, because you're in this thing that's, again, contraction, that's completely encaged, it's got your head encaged, and if I remember, like, complete, it's been a while, but I remember this thing, basket thing my head was in, and then you're right up against, close to the top of that chamber, right, that they do the MRI, but you got this little buzzer, if you panic, they can get you out right away. So anyways, I didn't have MS, so that was good. But he's looking at this MRI going, I still don't think that could be the reason, for you to have this neuropathy. So maybe the diabetes. But then I saw an endocrinologist, and he's looked at my findings, and my blood sugars were good, A1Cs were good, and he's like, well, it's not because of that. This is not because of diabetes. So later on, I did find out that it was because of the spine. But it took one more incident, major incident, and major shift in my world for them to find the next finding, okay? But I think we are going to leave it right here. So stay tuned for the next video as I continue my journey. I finally get my answer that I suffered for 20 years of my leg weakness. And but I start to get my life back, because they start to piece and get more information. But it was just sad. It took 20 years, So I get some of my life back, but still a major shift where my world changed forever. So send emails if you have a story you would like to share, and then I'll see you in that next video. And thank you for following my journey. Thank you for just listening. I wish I would have hiked more. Like when I started hiking with my friend, I wish I would have hiked more. I wish I would have got out there. I wish I would have traveled more. I wish I would have done so many more things if I would have known what was just ahead of me at such a young age. Okay? But we'll talk a little bit about that in the next video. And also my travel bug. And it came from my father. We traveled a lot. So get into that. Hopefully, if I remember in the next video, we'll chat, because this isn't new about my love for traveling, okay? It's been my whole life because of my dad, and I'm thankful for that. Okay, so see you in the next video. I love you all.